The mansion owner arrives unannounced and discovers something between his disabled son and the cleaning lady. Richard Foster parked the Mercedes in the garage of his Beverly Hills mansion 3 hours earlier than usual. The meeting with Japanese investors had been cancelled at the last minute. Something rare in his 15 years as director of the largest technology company in the greater Los Angeles area. Carrying his Italian leather briefcase, he walked toward the main entrance when he heard something that made him stop. Laughter. Genuine child's laughter was coming from the side garden of the house. He couldn't remember the last time he had heard his son Ethan laugh like that. The 7-year-old boy, who since the accident 2 years ago had become a silent shadow around the house, seemed to be truly having fun. Richard felt his heart race, a mixture of curiosity and something he couldn't name. He approached the side window of the living room, hiding behind the beige linen curtains. What he saw left him completely paralyzed. Ethan was in the garden, holding his small purple crutches, trying to balance on one leg, while Sarah, the cleaning lady hired 6 months ago, encouraged him with kind words. "That's it, Ethan, you can do it, just a little more, champ." The blonde boy, wearing a yellow t-shirt Richard didn't remember buying, radiated a joy his father hadn't seen in months. His blue eyes shone as he tried to follow Sarah's instructions, who was crouched beside him, ready to catch any fall. "I did it, Mrs. Sarah. I managed 5 seconds," Ethan shouted, hopping on one leg before leaning on his crutches again. "You're amazing, my angel. Now let's try with both feet on the ground, but without putting weight on the crutches. Can we do that?" Richard watched his cleaning lady properly for the first time. Sarah couldn't be more than 30 years old, brown hair tied in a simple ponytail, wearing the blue and white uniform he had required when hiring her. But there was something different in her movements, a familiarity with the boy's needs that the father himself didn't possess. The businessman remained there, hidden like a stranger in his own home, watching a scene that should be natural between father and son, but was happening between his son and an employee. Sarah reached for a small, colorful backpack that was beside the wooden bench. Richard had never seen that backpack before. From inside it, she took out some small toys and a children's book. "Ethan, how about we read a little while you rest? I brought a new story today." "Can it be the one about the boy who could fly, please?" "Of course it can. Sit here on the grass with me." Richard watched his son sit on the ground with a naturalness that surprised him. At home, Ethan always insisted on staying in his wheelchair or on the sofa, claiming it was more comfortable. Now there in the garden, he seemed completely at ease. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Sarah opened the book and began reading with different voices for each character. Ethan laughed and asked questions, showing an interest and liveliness Richard thought had been lost forever after the accident. "Mrs. Sarah, why could the boy in the story fly even though he used crutches?" "Because he discovered that body limitations don't limit dreams, Ethan. Sometimes when one part of us doesn't work like others, other parts become even more special. Like you, who has the most beautiful heart I've ever known." Richard felt a tightness in his chest. How long had it been since he had talked to Ethan about his feelings? How long had it been since he had seen him smile like that? The cleaning lady continued reading, but Richard noticed she wasn't exactly following the book's text. She was improvising, adapting the story to include elements that made Ethan feel represented. With each page, the boy identified more with the protagonist. "He's just like me, Mrs. Sarah. He also has a leg that doesn't work right. Exactly like you. And look what he can do anyway." Richard watched Sarah turn the page and show an illustration of a child with crutches helping other characters in the story. Ethan clapped his hands excitedly. "I want to help people when I grow up too." "I'm sure you'll help many people, Ethan. You already help me every day just by being who you are." The businessman felt a pang of guilt. When was the last time he had talked with Ethan about the future? About dreams? About anything beyond medical appointments and school routine? Sarah put away the book and took out some small objects from her backpack that Richard couldn't identify from a distance. They appeared to be homemade toys made with simple materials. "Now let's practice that exercise we talked about yesterday. Remember?" The hand coordination one, I remember. Ethan picked up the small objects and began making movements that seemed to be physical therapy exercises disguised as play. Sarah gently corrected him, always with words of encouragement. Richard realized the exercises were more elaborate and effective than anything he'd seen in the official physical therapy sessions he paid a fortune for. Sarah seemed to know exactly Ethan's needs and limitations. "Mrs. Sarah, why do you know so much about crutches and these things?" Ethan's innocent question made Richard pay even closer attention. Sarah hesitated for a moment before answering, and Richard noticed a fleeting sadness on her face. "Because I also know someone very special who needs help walking, Ethan, and I learned that when we love someone, we learn everything necessary to care for that person." "Who is that person?" "It's someone very important to me. But now, let's focus on you, okay?" Richard noticed Sarah had changed the subject, but Ethan seemed to accept the answer. They continued with the exercises for a few more minutes. "Ethan, I brought a special surprise for you today." Sarah took out a small, colorful notebook and some colored pencils from her backpack. "How about we draw together? You can draw anything you want, and I'll draw along with you. Can I draw you and me playing in the garden?" "Of course you can." "It would be an honor to appear in your drawing." Richard watched his son draw with a concentration and joy he hadn't seen in a long time. Ethan narrated every stroke he made, explaining details to Sarah, who listened with genuine attention. "Here's you, Mrs. Sarah, with your pretty hair, and here's me, but in this drawing I'm running without crutches. How beautiful, Ethan. And you know that one day this could really happen, don't you? The doctors said with exercises and patience, you might walk without help again." Richard remembered the last medical appointments. The physical therapist had mentioned surprising progress in Ethan's coordination and muscle strength, but Richard hadn't paid much attention, too focused on his professional commitments. "Mrs. Sarah, do you think my dad would be happy if I could walk by myself?" The question hit Richard like a punch in the stomach. "I'm sure your father would be very proud, Ethan. He loves you very much. Sometimes I think he gets sad when he sees me. That's why I stay quiet when he's home." Richard leaned against the wall, feeling his legs weaken. Ethan had noticed his discomfort and was trying to protect his father's feelings by making himself invisible. "Ethan, your father isn't sad because of you. Father isn't sad. Sometimes adults get worried about many things at once and forget to show how much they love the most important people in their lives." "How do you know that?" "Because I'm an adult too, and sometimes I make the same mistakes." Sarah helped Ethan finish the drawing, always praising and encouraging him. Richard noticed that she treated each of the boys' small achievements as a great victory, something he himself rarely did. "There, it turned out beautiful. I'll take it to show Daddy when he arrives. He'll be very happy to see your drawing talent." Richard looked at his watch. It was almost the time he usually arrived. Sarah began efficiently putting the materials back in the backpack. "Ethan, it's time for Mrs. Sarah to leave, but we'll be here again tomorrow, okay?" "Do you really have to? Can't you stay a little longer?" "We have the whole day ahead of us tomorrow. And remember what we talked about being an obedient and responsible boy?" "I remember, okay, Mrs. Sarah." Ethan hugged Sarah with a strength and affection that Richard rarely received from his own son. She returned the hug with equal intensity, kissing the top of the boy's blonde head. "See you tomorrow, my champion. Keep practicing those exercises I taught you, okay?" "I will practice, I promise." Richard watched Sarah walk toward the back exit, carrying her small, colorful backpack. Ethan remained in the garden for a few minutes, flipping through the drawing he had made, with a smile on his face. Only when his son went inside did Richard emerge from his hiding spot. His mind buzzed with questions. How did Sarah know so much about treating children with motor difficulties? Where did those efficient exercises come from? And most importantly, why did his own son appear happier and more confident in the presence of the cleaning lady than in his? That night, during the silent dinner that had become routine since Jennifer, his ex-wife, had left them a year ago, Richard observed Ethan more closely. The boy ate with more appetite than usual and even commented about his afternoon. "Dad, today I learned new exercises in the garden." "Exercises? With whom?" "With Mrs. Sarah. She knows a lot about crutches and those things." Richard felt a pang of curiosity mixed with jealousy. "And what exactly did you do?" "I practiced standing without leaning on the crutches, and she read me a beautiful story about a boy who could fly even while using crutches." Ethan talked about the afternoon with more enthusiasm than Richard had seen him show in months. Every detail revealed an intimacy and complicity between his son and the cleaning lady that made him uncomfortable. "Ethan, does Mrs. Sarah always play with you when I'm away?" "Always. She's really cool, Dad. She understands difficult things." "What difficult things?" Ethan hesitated, as if deciding whether he could trust his father. "Like being sad sometimes, like being afraid of not being able to do things. She said it's normal to feel that way." Richard realized that Sarah was offering his son the emotional support that he himself had failed to provide. The guilt weighed on his chest like a stone. After putting Ethan to bed, Richard stayed up late thinking about what he had witnessed. For the first time in months, he decided he would come home earlier the following week. On Tuesday, Richard managed to leave the office at 2 in the afternoon. He parked the car a block before home and walked quietly to the side window. Sarah and Ethan were in the garden again, but this time she had brought different materials. "Ethan, today we're going to work on balance in a different way. I'm going to teach you how to sit and stand up by yourself." "But I already know how to do that, Mrs. Sarah." "I know you do, but I'm going to teach you how to do it without using your hands for support. That way you become stronger and more independent." Richard watched his housekeeper guide Ethan through exercises that seemed extremely technical. She knew the boy's anatomy and limitations in a way that surprised him. "Very good. Now try again, but this time take a deep breath before making the movement." Ethan followed the instructions with complete trust in Sarah. Richard noticed his son never questioned her methods, showing a trust he rarely saw in official physical therapy sessions. "Mrs. Sarah, why do I need to take a deep breath?" "Because breathing helps your muscles work better. It's like giving extra energy to your body." "Did you learn that in school?" Richard saw Sarah hesitate again before answering. "I learned by taking care of someone very important to me." "The same person as yesterday?" "Yes, the same person." Ethan seemed to accept Sarah's vague answers, but Richard felt there were important secrets being hidden. Who was this mysterious person Sarah had cared for? And why did she never mention family or personal life during their casual conversations? During the session, Richard noticed Sarah wipe away a tear of frustration from Ethan's face when he couldn't complete a more difficult exercise. "It's okay not to get it on the first try, my dear. What matters is not giving up." "But I wanted to succeed. I wanted to be normal." Richard felt his heart break, hearing his son's painful confession. "Ethan, look at me. You are normal. You are perfect exactly as you are. Having difficulties doesn't make you less special or less capable. It makes you unique." "What do you mean?" "You have a strength here inside." Sarah gently touched Ethan's chest, that many people who walk normally don't have. "You face challenges every day and keep smiling. That makes you a hero." Ethan smiled through his tears, and Richard felt deep admiration for how Sarah handled the boy's difficult moments. "Mrs. Sarah, are you strong like me too?" "I'm learning to be, Ethan. You teach me every day how to be stronger." In that moment, Richard realized the relationship between Sarah and Ethan wasn't just between caregiver and child. There was a genuine exchange where both strengthened each other. On Wednesday, Richard arrived even earlier. This time he found Sarah and Ethan in the garden with another child, a dark-haired boy about 9 years old, also using crutches but with more severe motor difficulties. Richard was shocked. Sarah had brought another child to his property without permission. His first impulse was to interrupt the scene, but the joy on Ethan's face made him hesitate. "Ethan, this is Daniel. He's a warrior like you." "Hi, Daniel. Do you want to play with me?" Richard watched his son interact with another child with disabilities for the first time since the accident. Ethan showed a maturity and understanding that surprised him. "Is your mother Mrs. Sarah?" Ethan asked Daniel. "No. She takes care of me sometimes when my grandmother needs to go to the doctor." Richard paid attention to the answer. Did Sarah care for more children besides Ethan? And where were this child's parents? Daniel, tell Ethan about the exercises you do to get stronger. The older boy began explaining his physical therapy routine with impressive knowledge for his age. Ethan listened attentively, asking questions and comparing his own experiences. Do you feel pain sometimes too? Ethan asked. Sometimes, yes. But Mrs. Sarah said pain can't be stronger than our will to get better. Richard realized Sarah was providing Ethan with something he had never thought to offer: interaction with other children facing similar challenges. His son, who always felt isolated and different, now had an equal to identify with. The two children played together for over an hour, with Sarah supervising and guiding exercises that benefited both. Richard saw Ethan teach Daniel some techniques he had learned, taking on a leadership role he had never shown before. When Daniel left, Ethan was visibly more excited and confident. Mrs. Sarah, can I see Daniel again? Of course you can, Ethan. It was really nice to see you playing together. I liked having a friend who understands the hard things. Richard felt a lump in his throat. His son was verbalizing emotional needs he himself had never identified. That evening, Richard decided he needed to talk to Sarah. There were many unanswered questions, and the situation was becoming more complex than he had imagined. On Thursday, instead of hiding, Richard came home in the middle of Sarah's session with Ethan and went straight to the garden. "Good afternoon," he said, making both turn around surprised. "Dad, you're home early." Ethan showed genuine joy, something that reassured Richard. "Good afternoon, Mr. Foster. I was just—" Sarah began to explain, clearly nervous. "You were taking care of my son in a way I didn't know was possible." Sarah fell silent, unsure how to interpret the comment. "Ethan, can you give us a few minutes? I need to talk with Mrs. Sarah." "Is everything okay, Dad? Mrs. Sarah didn't do anything wrong." Ethan's readiness to defend Sarah touched Richard deeply. "Don't worry, son. Just a grown-up conversation." Ethan hesitated, but eventually went inside, not before whispering something in Sarah's ear that Richard couldn't hear. "Sarah, please sit down." They settled on the wooden bench in the garden. Richard observed the caregiver closely for the first time. She was younger than he had initially thought, with delicate features but mature expressions. There was a subtle sadness in her eyes that he had never noticed before. "How long have you been watching Ethan this way?" "Mr. Foster, I can explain. I'm not accusing you of anything wrong, Sarah. In fact, I'm trying to understand how you can make my son smile in a way I haven't managed in 2 years. Sarah seemed surprised by the non-confrontational approach. "Ethan is a special child, Mr. Foster. He just needs proper attention and stimulation." "And how do you know what the proper stimulation is?" Sarah hesitated for a long time before answering. I also have experience with children facing similar challenges." "What kind of experience?" "I cared for a child with special needs for several years." Richard realized Sarah was being evasive, but decided not to press her at that moment. "Sarah, in 2 weeks Ethan has shown more progress with you than in months of professional physical therapy. How is that possible?" "Sometimes affection and individual attention make more of a difference than technique, Mr. Foster." "Do you have training in physical therapy?" Sarah lowered her eyes, clearly uncomfortable. "I don't have official training." "But you have technical knowledge, that's obvious." "I learned out of necessity." Richard felt he was getting close to something important. "Necessity to care for whom, Sarah?" "For my—" She paused, as if deciding how much to reveal, "for my son." The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. Richard processed the information slowly. "You have a son with a disability." Sarah nodded, her eyes watery. "Where is he now?" "With my mother, in San Diego." "Why isn't he with you?" Sarah took a deep breath before answering. "Because I needed to work to afford his treatment. And in San Diego there weren't enough job opportunities." Richard began to understand the complexity of the situation. "How long has it been since you saw your son?" 2 months. 2 months? Richard couldn't hide his surprise. "Mr. Foster, I know it might seem strange, but everything I do is for his well-being. The money I earn here pays for his physical therapy, his medications, everything he needs. How old is he? 9 years old. He's the same age as Daniel, the boy I brought yesterday. That's why they got along so well. Richard realized that Daniel wasn't just a child that Sarah looked after occasionally. He was a way to ease the longing for her own son. Sarah, did you lie in your job interview? What do you mean? Your resume said you had a college degree. Sarah turned pale. I didn't lie about my ability to work. But you lied about your education. Mr. Foster, please, I need this job. My son depends on me. Richard saw the desperation in Sarah's eyes and felt a pang of compassion. Why did you lie? Because I know that without a college degree I wouldn't be hired to work in a house like yours, and I really need the money. What's your actual education? Sarah hesitated before answering. I have a technical degree in physical therapy. I couldn't finish college because my son was born with complications, and I had to dedicate myself entirely to his care. Richard finally understood why Sarah was so competent with Ethan. She not only had technical knowledge, but also deep personal experience. Sarah, you're sacrificing time with your own son to take care of mine. It's not a sacrifice, Mr. Foster. It's love. When I see Ethan progressing, I remember that I'm contributing to making another special child happy, and the money I receive here ensures that my son has everything he needs. Richard felt a complex admiration for Sarah. She was making painful choices based on love and necessity. How does your son handle your absence? Sarah couldn't hold back the tears she had been holding in throughout the conversation. He cries every night. My mother says he asks when I'm coming home. And you? How do you handle the longing? By taking care of Ethan. When I see him smiling and progressing, I feel like I'm making a difference in a special child's life, even though I can't be with mine. Richard understood that Sarah was channeling her maternal love to Ethan since she couldn't be with her own son. Sarah, can I ask a personal question? Of course, Mr. Foster. Your son's father. Does he help in any way? Sarah shook her head negatively. He left us when he found out about our son's limitations. He said he wasn't prepared to deal with a special child. Richard felt a tightness in his chest. He himself had emotionally abandoned Ethan after the accident, and now he saw the consequences of that attitude in Sarah's life. I'm sorry, Sarah. No need to be sorry. I discovered that I'm stronger than I imagined, and Ethan teaches me every day that I can be a better mother to my son when I return home. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out now continuing. What do you mean Ethan teaches you? He shows me that a special child isn't a problematic child, that they just need love, patience, and proper stimulation. Every progress Ethan makes gives me hope about my son's future. Richard realized that Sarah saw in Ethan a reflection of her own son, and this motivated her to give her best. Sarah, would you like to bring your son to Los Angeles? Mr. Foster, I don't have the financial means for that. Besides, he needs to continue the treatment he's been receiving in San Diego. What if I could ensure he gets the best treatment here? What if you could stay together? Sarah looked at him with surprise and suspicion. Why would you do that, sir? Richard thought before answering. Why was he really making that offer? Because you're bringing joy back to my son, and I think it's fair that I help you regain yours. Mr. Foster, I don't accept charity. It's not charity, Sarah. It's a professional proposal. How so? I want to officially hire you as Ethan's specialized caregiver, with a salary matching your actual qualifications and benefits that include medical treatment for your family. Sarah remained silent for a long moment. Are you serious, sir? Completely serious, but with one condition. What? I want to actively participate in Ethan's care. I want to learn how to be the father he needs. Sarah smiled for the first time since the conversation began. It would be an honor to teach you, Mr. Foster. Richard. You can call me Richard. That night, Richard called San Diego and spoke with Sarah's mother, the 60-year-old woman, Mrs. Dorothy had been caring for Michael, Sarah's son, for nearly 3 years. When Richard explained his proposal, the reaction was initially suspicious. "My daughter hasn't told me anything about such a proposal," said Mrs. Dorothy. "I just made the proposal today. Sarah is still thinking about it. And why do you want to help?" Richard explained the situation honestly, telling her about Ethan's progress and Sarah's sacrifice. "Mrs. Dorothy, your daughter has a special talent for caring for children like my son, and she's paying a very high emotional price for it." "Michael cries every night asking for his mother," admitted Mrs. Dorothy. "But Sarah always said it was temporary." "It can still be temporary, but it doesn't have to be painful. I can arrange Michael's treatment here in Los Angeles at specialized clinics." "And what do you get out of this?" Richard thought about the question. "The chance to be a better father to my son. Sarah can teach me things no manual or therapist has been able to." By the end of the conversation, Mrs. Dorothy agreed to come to Los Angeles with Michael to see the proposal in person. On Friday, Richard arrived home in the mid-afternoon and found Sarah tidying the garden with Ethan. She had decided to accept the proposal. "Ethan, I have a surprise for you," Richard said. "What surprise, Dad?" "Mrs. Sarah will continue to care for you, but now in an official way, and soon you'll meet her son." Ethan jumped with joy, leaning on his crutches. "Is it true, Mrs. Sarah? You're not leaving anymore?" "I'm not leaving, Ethan, and you'll meet Michael, my son." "Is he like me?" "Yes, he is, and I'm sure you'll become great friends." Richard watched the scene with a satisfaction he hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time since the accident, he had hope that his family could be happy again. The following Saturday, Mrs. Dorothy arrived from San Diego with Michael. The 9-year-old boy with dark hair and thin build used more sophisticated crutches than Ethan's and had more evident motor difficulties, but his eyes shone with intelligence and curiosity. When Michael saw Sarah in the mansion's garden, he dropped his crutches and threw himself into his mother's arms, crying, "Mommy, I knew you'd come back!" Richard watched the emotional reunion between mother and son with a mix of joy and guilt. Joy for making this meeting possible, guilt for realizing he had been insensitive to his own employees' emotional needs. Ethan shyly approached Michael. "Hi, I'm Ethan. My mom talked a lot about you. She said you're really cool. Your mom is the coolest person in the world. She taught me how to be strong. She taught me that too." Richard watched as the two children connected instantly. Michael, despite his more severe limitations, showed impressive emotional maturity for his age. During lunch, Michael talked about his routine in San Diego. "I used to have physical therapy 3 times a week, and I studied at home with Grandma Dorothy. Here you can have physical therapy every day if you want," said Richard. "And you can study with Ethan at the same special school." Michael looked at Sarah hopefully. "Is that true, Mom? If you want to stay, it's true." "I want to stay. I want to stay with you and play with Ethan." Richard felt he was making the right decision. The joy of the two children and Sarah's gratitude validated his choice. On Sunday, during a walk in the park near the mansion, Richard watched Sarah interact with both children at the same time. She managed to meet each one's specific needs without neglecting either of them. "Sarah, can I ask you a question?" "Of course, Richard." "How do you manage to be so patient? Sometimes I get desperate when Ethan struggles with something simple." Sarah thought before answering. "I learned that patience isn't a gift, it's a daily choice. When Michael was born, I used to get desperate too. But I realized my desperation didn't help him. It only increased his frustration." "How did that change?" "I started celebrating small victories. Every new movement Michael made, every word spoken more clearly, every day without pain. When you focus on progress instead of limitations, everything becomes easier." Richard watched Ethan and Michael playing together on the park's adapted playground. Ethan was teaching Michael how to use a special swing, showing a natural leadership Richard had never seen before. "Ethan has been different since Michael arrived," Richard commented. "He feels useful. Special needs children often feel like a burden to others. When Ethan can help Michael, he feels capable and important. And Michael, how is he handling the change?" "He's radiant. He hadn't seen his mother in 2 months. For a child, 2 months is an eternity." Richard felt a pang of guilt remembering how many days he'd gone without properly talking to Ethan. "Sarah, can I confess something?" "Of course." "I was afraid of Ethan. After the accident, I didn't know how to handle him. Every time I saw him struggling, it reminded me of my failure to protect him." "Richard, the accident wasn't your fault. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally I abandoned him when he needed me most." "You didn't abandon him. You were processing your own pain. That doesn't justify my absence." Sarah stopped walking and faced him. "Richard, you can keep lamenting the past, or you can start building a better future for both of you. Ethan doesn't need you to be perfect. He needs you to be present." That afternoon, Richard made an important decision. He cancelled all his Monday meetings and spent the entire day with Ethan and Michael, learning from Sarah how to interact positively with the children. "Ethan, can you show me how you use the crutches to climb stairs?" Ethan was surprised by his father's sudden interest. "You really want to learn, Dad?" "I want to learn everything about you, son." Ethan taught Richard every technique he'd learned from Sarah. Richard realized his son was much more capable and intelligent than he'd noticed. "Dad, do you want to try using the crutches?" Richard accepted the challenge. He tried walking with Ethan's crutches and quickly realized how complex the movements were. "It's much harder than it looks." "That's why I try so hard to get better," said Ethan. Richard hugged his son with an emotion he hadn't felt in a long time. "You're very brave, Ethan." "I'm very proud of you." Ethan returned the hug tightly. "I'm proud of you too, Dad." In the following weeks, Richard completely reorganized his routine. He cut his professional commitments in half and began actively participating in Ethan and Michael's daily lives. Sarah implemented a structured program that benefited both children. Physical therapy in the morning, educational activities in the afternoon, and free play at the end of the day. Richard started attending the physical therapy sessions and quickly understood why Ethan had progressed so much with Sarah. She transformed tedious exercises into fun games. "Michael, today we're going to play superheroes. Ethan, you'll be Professor Xavier, and Michael will be Cyclops. Both of you have special superpowers." The children got excited about the role-playing, forgetting they were doing rehabilitation exercises. During one session, Michael managed to take 3 consecutive steps without support, something he hadn't done in months. Ethan shouted with joy as if he had achieved something personal. "Michael, you did it! You're amazing!" Richard watched Ethan celebrate his friend's victory with more enthusiasm than his own achievements, and realized Sarah was right about the importance of children with similar challenges spending time together. 1 month after Michael's arrival, Richard received an unexpected call. It was Jennifer, his ex-wife. "Richard, I heard you hired a special nanny for Ethan." "I hired a qualified caregiver, yes. I need to talk to you in person. Can I come over today?" Richard hesitated. Jennifer had made it clear a year ago that she couldn't handle Ethan's special needs. "What do you want to talk about, Jennifer?" "About our family, about Ethan, about us." "There is no us anymore, Jennifer. Please, Richard, just one conversation." Richard reluctantly agreed but warned Sarah about the visit. "Sarah, my ex-wife is coming over today. Can you keep the children in the backyard garden?" "Of course, but may I ask why?" Richard briefly explained the situation. Sarah listened silently. "Richard, are you sure you want to expose Ethan to this situation?" "What do you mean?" "Ethan is in a very positive place right now. If his mother says or does something that hurts him..." "Do you think I should deny him the chance to see his mother?" "I think you should protect him first. Ethan is a sensitive child who's building self-confidence. One negative comment could destroy months of progress." Richard realized Sarah knew Ethan better than he did in many ways. "What do you suggest?" "Talk to her first. See what her intentions are. If she shows she's genuinely changed, you can introduce her to Ethan. If not, protect your son." Jennifer arrived in the late afternoon. Driving the BMW convertible Richard had given her as a birthday present 3 years earlier. She was elegant as always, wearing a designer outfit and high heels, completely unsuitable for a house with children. "Richard, you look great." "Jennifer, let's get straight to the point. Why did you come?" "Can't I miss my family?" You made it clear that Ethan and I were no longer your family when you left. Jennifer lowered her eyes. I was confused, Richard. I didn't know how to handle the situation. And now you do? I'm trying to learn. Richard led her to the living room, away from the garden where Sarah was playing with the children. Jennifer, what changed? I went to therapy. I understood I ran away out of fear, not lack of love. Fear of what? Of not being a good mother to a special needs child, of not knowing how to help Ethan. Richard studied her carefully. There was sincerity in her words, but also hesitation. And now you feel prepared? I want to try. I want to meet the Ethan of today. Ethan has changed a lot, Jennifer. He's not the withdrawn child you left anymore. What do you mean? Richard recounted Gabriel's progress, about Sarah and Michael, about the new dynamic in the house. You hired a woman to live here with her son? Richard noticed the tone of disapproval. I hired a qualified caregiver who's bringing joy back to our son. Richard, this isn't proper. What will people think? I don't care what people will think. But I do. We're a respected family in society. Richard realized Jennifer hadn't changed as much as she claimed. Jennifer, our family now functions in a way that prioritizes Gabriel's happiness. If that doesn't align with your social expectations, perhaps you're not truly ready to come back. Richard, be reasonable. We can give Gabriel a normal life without this situation. What situation? A happy child interacting with other special needs children and being cared for by someone who understands his needs. You know what I'm talking about. Richard stood up, irritated. No, Jennifer, I don't. Explain exactly what's wrong with Gabriel being happy and making progress. Jennifer hesitated, realizing she was revealing prejudices she'd rather keep hidden. Gabriel needs to learn to live in the real world, Richard, not in a protected bubble. The real world is a place where people help each other, Jennifer. Gabriel is learning that. From the garden, Gabriel and Michael's laughter reached them. Jennifer looked toward the sound with an expression Richard couldn't interpret. Can I see Gabriel? Yes, but on one condition. What? If you say or do anything that hurts him, you leave this house immediately and don't come back. Jennifer reluctantly agreed. Richard called Gabriel, asking Sarah and Michael to remain in the garden. Gabriel entered the room leaning on his crutches, wearing the yellow t-shirt that had become his favorite. When he saw Jennifer, he stopped and fell silent. Hi, sweetheart, said Jennifer, but without approaching. Hi, Mom. The greeting was polite but distant. Gabriel didn't show the joy Richard had expected. You've gotten taller and more handsome. Thank you. Richard noticed Gabriel was uncomfortable. Gabriel, do you want to show Mom the exercises you've learned? Gabriel looked at his father as if asking permission to refuse. Maybe another day, Dad. I want to go back to play with Michael. Jennifer couldn't hide her disappointment. Who's Michael? He's my best friend. He uses crutches like me and understands the hard things. Oh, was all Jennifer could say. Gabriel quickly left the room, leaving his parents alone. He rejected me, said Jennifer, hurt. He protected himself, corrected Richard. Gabriel has learned to identify when someone isn't comfortable with his condition. I am comfortable. Jennifer, you didn't even approach him. You didn't offer a hug. Gabriel noticed your hesitation. Jennifer sat on the couch, visibly shaken. Richard, I want to try, really. Then you need to genuinely change. Gabriel isn't that insecure child anymore who accepted any crumb of affection. He has self-esteem now and won't accept being treated as a burden. How can I prove I've changed? Richard thought about the question. By getting to know Gabriel as he is today, understanding his needs, respecting his friendships, and most importantly, showing that your presence brings joy, not obligation. Jennifer remained silent for a long moment. Can I try gradually? Regular visits? Yes, but Gabriel decides if he wants these visits or not. Jennifer agreed, though Richard noticed her frustration. After Jennifer left, Richard talked with Gabriel about the encounter. Son, how did you feel seeing Mom? Gabriel thought before answering. Weird. She seemed afraid of me. Afraid how? like people on the street sometimes get when they see me with my crutches, like I might break. Richard was impressed by his son's emotional perception. And how did that make you feel? Sad, but also angry. Angry why? Because I'm not broken, Dad. I'm different, but I'm not broken. Richard hugged Ethan with pride. You're absolutely right, son. And never forget that. That evening, Richard talked to Sarah about the encounter. Ethan consciously rejected Jennifer, Richard told her. He protected himself, Sarah agreed. Special children develop very sharp emotional senses. Ethan felt she wasn't genuinely happy to see him. Is that good or bad? It's healthy. Ethan is learning to value genuine relationships. That will protect him from a lot of pain in the future. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. In the following weeks, Jennifer made several attempts to visit, but Ethan always found reasons to avoid her. Richard realized his son was testing his mother's persistence. Dad, if Mom really wants to be with me, she'll keep trying even when I'm difficult, Ethan explained one afternoon. Richard was impressed by his son's emotional maturity. And if she keeps trying, then maybe I'll give her a chance. After the fifth unsuccessful visit, Jennifer had an honest conversation with Richard. Ethan doesn't accept me, maybe I've lost my chance. Jennifer, Ethan isn't a resentful adult. He's a child who needs emotional security. What does that mean? It means he needs to believe you won't abandon him again if things get tough. How can I prove that? Richard thought about the question. How could Jennifer prove genuine commitment? By showing real interest in his life, getting to know his friends, his routines, his challenges. Can I meet this Michael? You can, but you need to understand that Michael is part of the family now. If you show discomfort around him, Ethan will notice. Jennifer agreed to meet Michael formally. Richard organized a snack in the garden with both children, Sarah and Jennifer. Michael proved naturally sociable, telling stories about his life in San Diego and asking genuine questions to Jennifer. Aunt Jennifer, do you have special children too? I have Ethan, Jennifer answered hesitantly. Ethan is really cool. He taught me how to climb stairs with crutches. Really? Yeah, and he always helps me when I can't do something. Richard watched Jennifer process the information that Ethan had taken on a leadership and caring role. Ethan, do you like helping Michael? I like it very much, Mom. When I help him, I feel important. Important how? Like an older brother protecting his younger brother. Richard saw tears forming in Jennifer's eyes. Do you consider Michael your brother? Yes, I do. He understands things that only I used to understand before. Jennifer looked at Sarah, who had remained discreetly observant. Sarah, can I speak with you alone? Sarah agreed, and they walked away while the children continued playing. Sarah, can I ask you some questions? Of course. Do you think I'm a bad mother for having abandoned Ethan? Sarah thought carefully before answering. I think you did what you could do at that time, but Ethan isn't the same child you left anymore. What do you mean? He's developed self-esteem and a sense of self-worth. He won't accept being loved conditionally. Conditionally. Ethan notices when someone wishes he were different than he is, and he won't tolerate that anymore. Jennifer absorbed the information in silence. What can I do to regain his trust? Show him that you love him exactly as he is, that his disability isn't a problem to be solved, but a characteristic to be accepted. It's hard for me, admitted Jennifer. Why? Because I always dreamed of a perfect son, and when Ethan had the accident, I felt like my dreams had been destroyed. Sarah nodded with understanding. I understand your feelings, but you need to understand that Ethan isn't a failed dream. He's a real person with incredible qualities. What qualities? He's empathetic, courageous, determined. He has a sense of humor and leadership ability. He's affectionate and loyal. All these qualities exist regardless of whether he uses crutches or not. Jennifer watched Ethan playing with Michael, seeing for the first time the characteristics Sarah had mentioned. Sarah, can I ask a favor? Of course. Can you teach me to see Ethan the way you see him? I can try, but the most important thing is for you to genuinely want to learn. In the following weeks, Jennifer began visiting the house more frequently, observing the routines and interactions. Sarah gradually included her in the activities, always supervising. Richard noticed that Jennifer was making a genuine effort, but Ethan remained cautious. "Son, your mother is trying to get closer. Did you notice?" "I noticed, but I still don't know if I can trust her." "What would she need to do to earn your trust?" Ethan thought for a long moment. "She'd need to like Michael too, and not make faces when I take longer to do things." Richard understood that Ethan had established specific criteria for accepting Jennifer back. "And if she manages to do that? Then maybe I'll give her a chance to be my mom again." Richard spoke with Jennifer about Ethan's criteria. "He wants you to genuinely accept Michael and show patience with his limitations." "That sounds like a test." "It is a test, Jennifer. Ethan is testing whether you've really changed." "And if I don't pass the test?" "Then you'll have confirmed that you're not ready to be a special needs child's mother." Jennifer realized she was at a crossroads. She could continue trying to mold the situation according to her expectations, or she could adapt to Ethan's real needs. On a Saturday afternoon, the decisive moment happened. Ethan was playing in the garden with Michael when he tripped and fell, hurting his knee. Michael, despite his own difficulties, immediately approached to help. Jennifer, who was watching from the porch, ran down and arrived even before Sarah. "Ethan, are you okay?" "I'm okay, Mom, just scraped my knee." Jennifer examined the injury, cleaned it carefully, and put on a bandage. Throughout the process, she showed no impatience or frustration. "There, now you can go back to playing, but more carefully." Ethan watched her intently. "Mom, thank you for helping me." "I'll always help you when you need it, Ethan." But the most important moment happened when Michael, who had lost his balance while trying to help Ethan, also fell. Without hesitation, Jennifer approached Michael with the same concern and care she had shown Ethan. "Michael, are you hurt?" "I think I twisted my wrist," said the boy, holding his arm. Jennifer examined Michael's wrist gently, checking for any serious injury. "Let's put some ice on it to reduce the swelling. You were very brave trying to help Ethan." Ethan watched the entire scene in silence. When Jennifer finished taking care of Michael, Ethan approached her. "Mom, you took care of Michael the same way you took care of me." "Of course, Ethan. Michael is important too." "Does that mean you really like him?" Jennifer looked at Michael, who was watching her expectantly. "It means that anyone who's important to you is important to me too." Ethan smiled at Jennifer for the first time in months. "So can you stay with us today?" "If you'd like, I'd love to stay." That afternoon, Jennifer participated in the children's activities for the first time. She helped with physical therapy exercises, listened to stories about Ethan and Michael's adventures, and even tried using the crutches when Ethan offered. Richard watched everything from a distance, seeing his ex-wife genuinely interacting with the children. "Sarah, Jennifer seems to be really changing." "She's trying. The true test will be consistency." "What do you mean?" "Anyone can be patient and caring for an afternoon. The question is whether she'll maintain this attitude on difficult days." Richard understood that Sarah was right. True change would be tested in situations of stress and frustration. In the following weeks, Jennifer began visiting the house regularly. Richard and Sarah observed her reactions during challenging moments. When Ethan had a frustration tantrum over not being able to complete an exercise, Jennifer remained calm and encouraged him to try again. When Michael needed extra help climbing stairs, she offered support without showing impatience. But the ultimate test came one afternoon when Ethan and Michael were particularly restless. The two children started arguing over a toy, and the situation escalated quickly. "It's mine, I had it first," shouted Ethan. "But you've been playing with it all morning, now it's my turn," Michael replied. Richard and Sarah were busy in the kitchen when they heard the argument. Jennifer was alone with the children in the garden. "Boys, let's solve this by talking," said Jennifer, approaching calmly. "I don't want to talk, I want the toy." Ethan was clearly upset. "Ethan, take a deep breath. Remember the exercises Sarah taught you?" Richard and Sarah watched from the window, ready to intervene if necessary. "I don't want to do exercises, I want the toy." Ethan threw his crutches on the ground in frustration, something he rarely did. Jennifer knelt beside him. "Ethan, I understand you're angry. I get angry too sometimes when things don't go my way." "You get angry?" "Yes, I do. Last week I got really angry in traffic." "What did you do?" "I took deep breaths and thought about good things, like you and Michael playing together." Ethan began to calm down. "Michael, can you tell me why you want the toy so much?" "It's just that at home I don't have toys like these, and this one is really cool." Jennifer looked at both boys. "How about if you play together with the toy? You could make up a game where both of you participate." Ethan and Michael looked at each other. "We could play race," suggested Ethan. "But you're faster than me," said Michael. "Then we'll each use just one crutch. That makes it more equal." Richard smiled, seeing Ethan propose a creative solution that included Michael. "Good idea," Michael agreed. Jennifer helped organize the game, demonstrating patience and creativity. That night, when the children were already asleep, Richard talked with Jennifer. "You handled the situation this afternoon very well. I learned by watching Sarah. She always turns conflicts into learning opportunities. Do you think you're ready to come back for good?" Jennifer hesitated. "Richard, can I be honest?" "Of course. I still have moments of doubt. Sometimes I look at Ethan and Michael and feel lost." "That's normal, Jennifer. Even I have those moments. But I feel like I'm learning. And most importantly, I feel like I want to learn. That's the most important difference." "What do you mean?" "Before you wanted Ethan to adapt to your expectations. Now you're adapting to his needs." Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. "Sarah taught me that true love doesn't try to change the person you love. It accepts and supports them. And do you agree with that?" "I'm learning to agree." Richard decided it was time to have an important conversation with Ethan. "Son, how do you feel about Mommy coming back home?" Ethan thought carefully. "She's different, Dad. More cool." "Cool how?" "She doesn't get sad when she sees me with my crutches. And she genuinely likes Michael." "Is that important to you?" "It's very important. Michael is my brother now. If Mom didn't like him, I couldn't like her." Richard was impressed once again by his son's emotional maturity. "What if she comes back home? Would you like that?" "Only if Sarah and Michael stay too." "They will stay, Ethan. This is their home now." "Then yes, I'd like Mommy to come back." Richard felt his family was finally restructuring itself in a healthy way. That evening, he made a proposal to Jennifer. "Jennifer, what do you say we officially move back in together?" "Richard, are you sure? Ethan wants you back, and you've shown genuine change. What about Sarah and Michael? They're part of the family now. That doesn't change." "Richard, can I confess something?" "Of course. At first I was jealous of Sarah." "Jealous why?" "Because she could make Ethan smile in a way I never could." "And now?" "Now I understand that Sarah didn't replace me. She taught me how to be the mother Ethan needed." Richard smiled. "So are we ready to start over?" "We are." The next day, Richard gathered the whole family for an important conversation. "Everyone, I have an announcement to make. Jennifer is officially moving back in with us." Ethan and Michael exchanged excited looks. "Does that mean we'll have a real mum here?" asked Michael. "We already have Sarah as a mum," replied Ethan. "Now we'll have two mums." Richard watched Sarah react to Ethan's statement. She looked moved, but also concerned. "Sarah, are you comfortable with this situation?" asked Richard. "I feel honored by your trust, but I want to make sure my place in the family is clear." "What would be your ideal place?" asked Jennifer. "I want to continue being the children's specialized caregiver, but also, if you'll allow me, I'd like to be considered real family." Ethan stood up, leaning on his crutches, and hugged Sarah. "Sarah, you are our family. You saved Ethan's dad and brought joy to our home." Everyone was moved by the boy's simple but profound statement. Jennifer approached Sarah. "Sarah, thank you for taking care of my son when I didn't know how. And thank you for teaching me to be the mother he deserves." The two women hugged, symbolizing a partnership based on the children's well-being. Richard watched his unconventional family and felt deep satisfaction. Ethan was happy and making progress. Michael had his mother back and access to the best treatments. Sarah could care for her own son without sacrificing her career. And Jennifer had learned to love unconditionally. In the following months, the family's routine settled harmoniously. Jennifer and Sarah naturally divided responsibilities, each contributing their specific strengths. Sarah remained responsible for the technical aspects of the children's care, while Jennifer took on the role of emotional support and household organization. Richard further reduced his professional commitments, delegating responsibilities to have more time with his family. "Richard, don't you miss your intense professional life from before?" Jennifer asked one evening. "I miss the professional recognition sometimes, but I don't miss being absent from Ethan's life. Is the trade-off worth it?" "Completely. Before I was professionally successful, but failing as a father. Now I have balance." During a routine medical checkup, the orthopedic doctor was impressed with Ethan's progress. "Mr. Foster, Ethan has shown extraordinary improvement over the past months. His coordination, muscle strength, and balance are far beyond what we expected. This is due to Sarah's work and the positive environment we've created," explained Richard. "And Michael, how is he adapting to the treatment here in Los Angeles?" "Michael is also progressing beyond expectations. Having Ethan as an exercise partner has motivated both to push themselves harder." The doctor shook his head, impressed. "It's rare to see such positive results when children with disabilities are treated in isolation. Their interaction has created an exceptional therapeutic dynamic." Richard shared the medical observation with Sarah. "Did you always know they would benefit mutually?" "I sensed it would be good, but I didn't expect such dramatic results," admitted Sarah. "What made the difference?" "I think it was the combination of proper technique, a positive emotional environment, and most importantly, neither of them feeling alone in their challenges." In the 6th month after the family restructuring, something extraordinary happened. Ethan managed to walk 10 consecutive meters without any support. The achievement occurred on a Sunday afternoon during a picnic in the park. Ethan was playing with Michael when a ball rolled away. Without thinking, Ethan dropped his crutches and ran after the ball. Only after picking up the ball did he realize what he had done. "Dad! Sarah! Michael! Jennifer! I ran without my crutches!" The whole family gathered around Ethan, moved. "Ethan, you did it!" "You really did it!" shouted Michael, more excited than Ethan himself. Richard hugged his son with tears in his eyes. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan." "Dad, does this mean I can stop using the crutches?" "It means you can use them when you need to and not use them when you don't," explained Sarah. "Your legs are getting stronger, but they still need support sometimes." Ethan nodded, showing maturity in accepting that progress was gradual. That evening, during dinner, Ethan made a statement that surprised everyone. "Family, I want to thank you." "Thank you for what, son?" asked Richard. "For teaching me that being different doesn't mean being less important." Jennifer discreetly wiped away a tear. "Ethan, you've taught us more than we've taught you." "How so, Mom?" "You've taught us that true love doesn't try to change the loved one. It accepts and celebrates." Michael, who had remained quiet, also spoke. "Ethan, thank you for showing me that I can be strong even though I'm different." Richard watched the two children connecting on a deep emotional level and realized that Sarah had created more than a therapeutic routine. She had built a family based on mutual acceptance and shared growth. "Sarah, can I ask you a personal question?" said Richard. "Of course." "Are you happy with the life we've built here?" Sarah looked around the table, seeing Ethan and Michael laughing together, Jennifer serving more food with care, Richard relaxed and present. "I'm happier than I ever imagined I could be." "Even though you had to leave your hometown?" "Richard, home isn't a place. It's where the people we love are safe and happy." Jennifer joined the conversation. "Sarah, can I confess something?" "Of course." "At first, I saw you as a rival. I thought you were trying to take my place. And now? Now I understand that you didn't take my place. You helped me find my true place." Richard realized that the two women had developed a genuine friendship based on the common goal of caring for the children. 2 years after the family restructuring, Ethan started attending a regular school, using crutches only when necessary. Michael was also in a special school, but was expected to transition to regular education the following year. The house in Beverly Hills had become a gathering place for other families with special needs children. Sarah developed an informal support program, sharing knowledge and creating a support network for parents and caregivers. "Richard, Sarah is becoming a reference in the community," commented Jennifer. "She deserves recognition for the work she does. Do you think she would like to formalize this work, maybe open a clinic or institute?" Richard considered the suggestion. "It would be a way to help more families, but I don't want her to feel pressured to expand if she's happy as things are." That evening, Richard talked to Sarah about the possibility. "Sarah, have you ever thought about formalizing the work you do with families of special needs children?" "How do you mean?" "Turning it into an official profession, maybe a family support center or something like that." Sarah thought about the proposal. "It would be amazing to help more families, but I'm afraid it might interfere with my commitment to Ethan and Michael. What if it was structured so you could maintain your involvement with our family? How would that be possible?" Richard had thought about the issue before. "We could convert part of the property into a therapeutic center. You would work right here. Ethan and Michael would be part of the program, and other families would benefit from your experience." Sarah was visibly excited by the idea. "Richard, this would be a dream come true, to be able to help other families while continuing to care for our children. Then let's make it happen." The project took 1 year to implement. The property was adapted with physical therapy equipment, activity rooms, and common areas. Sarah became the technical director of Hope Institute, specializing in family support for children with special needs. Ethan and Michael became ambassadors of the program, sharing their experiences with other children and demonstrating that physical limitations don't prevent dreams and achievements. At the official inauguration of the institute, Richard gave an emotional speech. Hope Institute was born from the need for a special child to be understood and accepted. It grew through the unconditional love of a mother who sacrificed everything for her child's well-being. And it was strengthened by the union of an unconventional family that discovered true love knows no barriers or prejudices. Ethan, now 10 years old, stepped up to the microphone to speak. "My name is Ethan, and I use crutches when I need to. Before I thought this made me different in a bad way. Now I know it makes me special in a good way. Hope Institute will help other children discover that being different means being unique, not being less important." The audience applauded emotionally. Richard watched his son speaking with confidence and maturity, without any trace of the shyness and insecurity from years past. Michael, now 12 years old, also gave a brief speech. "I want to thank Ethan for teaching me that true friendship accepts all differences, and I want to thank my mother, Sarah, for never giving up on me, even when it meant giving up her own happiness." Sarah stepped onto the stage and hugged both children. "Ethan and Michael taught me that disability lies in the society that doesn't accept differences, not in the people who are different. I hope Hope Institute helps change that reality for many families." Jennifer watched from the audience, proud of the family they had built together. She had become an active advocate for special needs children's rights, using her social position to raise awareness among other parents. 3 years after the Institute's inauguration, Ethan participated in a sports competition for youth with disabilities. He had chosen swimming, a sport that allowed him to move freely in the water. Michael, who had developed exceptional artistic skills, exhibited his drawings in local galleries, inspiring other children with his positive representations of disability. Richard, now with a leaner company but more focused on social responsibility, sponsored various inclusion programs. The family gathered to celebrate Ethan's 15th birthday, reflected on the journey they had taken together. "Ethan, do you remember what our life was like before Sarah arrived?" asked Richard. Ethan, now a confident and articulate teenager, smiled. "I remember it was very quiet and sad. I used to hide because I thought I was a problem. And now? Now I know I was never a problem. It was a family that didn't know how to function with a special member. Michael, who was listening to the conversation, added, "Family isn't perfect. Family is people who love each other, even in their imperfections." Sarah, who had married Richard 2 years earlier, in a simple ceremony held in the garden where it all began, watched with satisfaction the 2 boys she had helped raise. "Do you know what my biggest lesson has been over these years?" she asked. "What?" the children replied in unison. "That love isn't feeling sorry for someone. Love is believing in someone's potential, even when that person doesn't believe in themselves yet." Jennifer, who had found her place in the family as the coordinator of social activities at the Institute, joined the conversation. "Sarah, thank you for teaching me that motherhood isn't about trying to create perfect children. It's about supporting real children to discover their own perfection." Richard hugged his expanded family, feeling deep gratitude for every twist that had brought them to that moment. "You know something? On the day I came home 3 hours early and saw Sarah playing with Ethan, I thought I was discovering a problem." "And what did you really discover?" asked Ethan. "I discovered a solution. I discovered that family isn't blood or DNA. Family is the daily choice to love, support, and believe in each other." Michael raised his glass of juice for a toast. "To the Hope family." "To the Hope family," everyone repeated in unison. 10 years later, the Hope Institute had become a national reference in family support for children with special needs. Ethan was studying psychology, specializing in therapy for adolescents with disabilities. Michael had become a recognized artist, using his art to raise society's awareness about inclusion. Richard and Sarah expanded the Institute to 3 cities, always maintaining the focus on personalized care and the integrated family approach. Jennifer developed preparation programs for parents of newly diagnosed children, using her own experience of overcoming as a support tool. On a common autumn day, Richard found Sarah in the garden where it all began, watching a group of children playing freely. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "I'm thinking that afternoon when you caught me playing with Ethan changed not only our lives, but the lives of hundreds of families. Do you regret anything?" Sarah looked at him affectionately. "I regret having lied on my resume." Richard laughed. "If you hadn't lied, I wouldn't have hired you." "Exactly. And Ethan would still be sad and isolated. And you would still be away from Michael. And you would still be an absent father. And Jennifer would still be running from her own fears." Sarah nodded. "Sometimes a small lie can lead to a great truth." "What truth?" "That true love transforms limitations into possibilities." Richard hugged Sarah, watching Ethan and Michael, now adults, helping other children in the garden. The cycle of care and love continued, expanding to new families arriving at the Institute, seeking hope and guidance. "Sarah, thank you for lying on your resume. Thank you for coming home 3 hours early that day." They remained embraced, watching the cheerful activity in the garden, knowing they had built something much greater than a family. They had built a legacy of love, acceptance, and hope that would continue impacting lives for generations. Ethan approached the couple, now walking only with a light cane for support on more difficult days. "Dad, Sarah, did you know today marks exactly 15 years since you met?" Richard and Sarah exchanged surprised glances. "We hadn't realized," admitted Richard. "Michael and I prepared a surprise for you." Ethan led the couple to the main hall of the Institute, where dozens of families who had been helped over the years were gathered. "Families who passed through here wanted to thank you personally," explained Michael. During the next 3 hours, Richard and Sarah heard stories of transformation, overcoming, and hope. Each family shared how the Institute's approach had changed their lives. A mother of a girl with cerebral palsy stood up to speak. "Sarah, when I arrived here 5 years ago, I was desperate. I thought my daughter would never be happy. Today she attends a regular school, has friends, and dreams of becoming a veterinarian. You taught me that the problem wasn't with her. It was with how I viewed her." A father of twins with Down syndrome added, "Richard, you showed us that professional success means nothing if we don't succeed as parents. I completely reorganized my life after meeting you." Ethan watched the testimonials with pride, knowing his own journey had been the catalyst for all those transformations. At the end of the celebration, Sarah gave an emotional speech. 15 years ago, I was a desperate mother who lied on a resume to get a job. Today I'm a fulfilled educator who discovered her life's mission. This transformation was only possible because a family welcomed me, not just as an employee, but as an integral part of their lives. Richard added, and I was an absent father who didn't know how to handle his own son's needs. Sarah taught me that responsible parenting means constant presence, unconditional love, and complete acceptance of the child as they are. Ethan asked to speak one last time. I want all the children here to know that being different doesn't mean being inferior. It means being unique. And I want all parents to know that special children aren't punishments or challenges. They're gifts that teach us about true love. The audience rose in an emotional standing ovation. That evening, after everyone had left, the family gathered in the garden for a moment of reflection. Do you think we've accomplished our mission? Asked Jennifer. Our mission never ends, replied Sarah. With every family we help, every child who regains self-esteem, every parent who learns to be present, our mission continues. And what about our children? Have we prepared them for the world? Asked Richard. Ethan and Michael exchanged knowing glances. Dad, we don't need to be prepared for the world, said Ethan. We help prepare the world to accept people like us. Michael agreed. The next generation of special children will find a more inclusive world because you taught us to fight for our rights with dignity. Richard felt they had truly managed to create something extraordinary, a family based not on social conventions, but on genuine love and mutual acceptance. Sarah took Richard's hand. 15 years ago, I never could have imagined that a lie on my resume would lead me to the life of my dreams. And I never could have imagined that coming home early one day would completely change my perspective on family and happiness. Ethan hugged them both. Thank you for turning my differences into strengths. Michael joined the hug. And thank you for teaching me that family isn't who gives us life, but who makes our life better. Jennifer completed the group hug. Thank you for letting me learn that true maternal love accepts instead of trying to change. They remained embraced in the garden lit by soft lights, knowing they had built not just a family, but an example that differences can unite rather than divide when there's genuine love and willingness to understand. The full moon illuminated the garden where everything had begun, and the sound of children's laughter echoed like a symphony of hope for all the families who would still come to the Hope Institute seeking guidance and support. Richard looked at Sarah one last time on that special night. Do you know the most important thing I learned from you? What? That the greatest miracles don't happen overnight. They're built day after day with love, patience, and dedication. Sarah smiled. And do you know the most important thing I learned from you? What? That true leaders don't command. They serve, support, and lift up the people around them. Ethan interrupted his parents' romantic conversation. Can you stop with the philosophy and help me organize the toys? More children are arriving tomorrow. Everyone laughed and headed inside, knowing the work of love and dedication would begin again the next day, as it always had been and always would be in the Hope family. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Richard made the right decision by welcoming Sarah and Michael? We'd love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.